All right. We're looking at these notes in chapter 23, thinking about angels and spirits and wings. Pretty complicated stuff that I need a little more insight about. He does give you some verses you can go check out in Job, but and other places. But anyway, we left off last time with a passage from Thomas DeWitt Talmage talking about unknown people can become famous through association with God's man. 2. Feeble instruments are capable of great service. 3. Little incidents can foil great schemes. 4. Evil, once discerned, should be unmasked. 5. Duty undertaken should be carried out. Well, these guys are starving to death. They can't carry out the objective. They're going to go into a brick wall of Roman soldiers, 500 of them, getting ready to transport Paul at 3 a.m. I don't think they're going to succeed. But this is also a recording of something that people like to deny constantly and call me crazy. You know, that word conspiracy. Where is it again? 16. Where did they initially? Certain of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. And there were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy. More than 40. And it's a conspiracy. It sounds like a secret society of skull and bones psychopaths, you know? Over 40 people plotting to kill one little guy, you know? It's straight out of the pit of hell. Why make such effort to kill somebody? Well, because he's growing the Christian church, and they're losing their power and audience. And their power is based on Satan's power. I mean, it has been, but Jesus has crushed him, and now Satan is losing his power. But while his power still remains, he tells these 50 guys, 40 or more, to kill Paul. Isn't this amazing? Yeah, that note with these 5 things, you know, think about the Abraham Lincoln assassination. Think about all the assassinations throughout history. How many of them are just like this? You know, it's amazing to think about. I think there's another Ruckman book called The Jesuit Conspiracy, or The Jesuit something, talking about the Jesuits and the Pope, and I think that's where all the assassination, or the Assassin's Creed games, I don't know if you've ever played those games, but some of the initial games were all about the Pope, and I think they were hitting too close to the truth about the Pope and the Jesuits, and I think they were talking about Templars, but I don't know. Anyway, when you start to study a lot of these conspiracies, people will call you crazy. You know, if you look at the JFK assassination, everybody calls you a crazy person. But the more you study it, the more you realize that there are 50 guys plotting the assassination of somebody, and why do they do it? Where does the money go? How does it impact power? And, you know, Lyndon Johnson took over after JFK. JFK was trying to get us back on, get us less dependent on fiat currency. He wanted to, I think he was trying to print a different form of money outside of the dollar. It's almost like a modern Bitcoin idea. Fiat currency is what's destroying peasants like me today, you know. It's devaluation of currency, it's legalized robbery. And then you have income tax that robs you further. But not complaining. Please don't shoot me or anything, you know. I'm very grateful for what I have. I'm just pointing out how crazy people in authority in Satan's dominion, how they use money and power, and how assassinations like this point to bigger things, you know. Satan knew that Paul was power. You know, Paul was presenting these speeches to people, and it was just moving people to Jesus Christ. And it was unstoppable. And so Satan was trying to get these 50 guys to kill Paul. And praise God, this warden guy, chief captain, the warden, at least in my mind, that's what I think of. And he gets 500 guys to transport Paul out of here. It's amazing. But anyway, you start to think about conspiracies without your foundation in Jesus Christ, you can get pretty bitter about history and pretty negative about your current circumstances. But bottom line, just know that, you know, Jesus Christ wins in the end. So all the conspiracies that show all these evil people behind most of these horrible things that happen, you know, different circumstances in our culture and society, how it's breaking down and everything, money manipulation, inflation, you know, it's all Satan, and he does want us to be miserable and die, but more importantly, he wants us to be not saved. He doesn't want you to come to the truth. If you focus on these conspiracies too much, you can get distracted on the wrong thing in life. You know, you should be thankful for the ability to breathe right now. You know, that's what I'm thankful for right now. I'm thankful for a moment of peace, a cup of coffee, a sandwich. Very basic things that I think of. This Bible is infinite, but nobody appreciates it like I'm thinking, you know. You can sit here and read the most amazing book ever created by God, and he's telling you the story of the universe right here. You know, simple peasant like me with not a lot, you know, you can just talk about that and think about that. How privileged are you? Alright, the last note is on verse 24. And provide them beasts, that they may set Paul on and bring him safe unto Felix the governor. Here's the note. There is an interesting corruption in the Western family of manuscripts which say, for he feared lest the Jews seize him and kill him, and he meanwhile should be accused of having taken a bribe. This corrupt edition is typical of the Western text from Rome. It is not only found in the Clementine Vulgate and one of Old Latin edition, but in Papyrus 48, which comes from the 3rd century, somewhere around AD 250 or 260. This shows that Bible corruption was very early and enters manuscripts before the writing of Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, AD 350. That shows you how important Paul was. Not only were there actual assassins trying to assassinate him physically, but they were also trying to assassinate him on the intellectual stage. and try to compromise his writings and compromise what he was saying, so that what he was saying from God would be corrupted and manipulated by a bunch of liberals today. Sinaiticus and Vaticanus are the manuscripts used for the NIV, NLT, all the other modern Bible versions versus the authorized King James that we're reading right now. Interesting, right? You can't kill him right now with a gun, but maybe I can get him 100 years down the line when I get people to question some manuscript, some intellectual jerk. I can manipulate that. Isn't it amazing how Satan tries every angle? Scary. Be on your guard, always in prayer and thanking God for another day, because it is not guaranteed with how dangerous these evil people can be. Scary stuff. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.